Thanks, Pete. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and talk to you about our development. This venture started originally with an introduction to Garage Project back in 2019, arranged by a very good mutual friend of ours. And we were chatting about them on a range of different options and opportunities unrelated to hops, but was immediately drawn to Garage Project's work on promoting the New Zealand industry, particularly with Hāpi. And hearing Pete just wax lyrical on all the New Zealand hop varieties and how highly sought after they are to the global market really sort of piqued our interest. And so that sort of led us down a little path to Dave Dunbar at Freestyle. And after many discussions and a bit of persistence, we sort of shared a similar view about having an opportunity to create a large-scale hop development outside of the traditional growing regions, largely in Nelson. So after a pretty extensive search up and down the South Island, we were finally alerted to this dairy farm that's located in this one of the most idyllic valleys in the country. And I recall when I was with Pete, one of the very first times visiting, he made this sweeping declaration that this was the hop farm from Lord of the Rings. And he wasn't wrong. So we've been going at a pretty frenetic pace for the last 2 years, and all culminating in our first harvest this March. Big achievement for the team, and had a lot of pride for them when they were cutting the first vines from the garden and putting them through the picker. Most of them had been there from the very start. So before I launch into a few slides, I just wanted to share with you a video that was taken during harvest, just trying to capture some of the magic of the place. So as a new hop farm, we're well into development, but at completion, Nelson Lakes Hops will be, we think, the largest contiguous hop farm in the country at 370 canopy hectares, fully equipped with some of the best-in-class processing equipment, delivering really high-quality hops. We've got a great team down on site, led by the very experienced General Manager Jason Johnson, and supported by some pretty heavy hitters in the industry, being Freestyle and Garage Project. Just want to highlight the distance between our farm and Freestyle and Sunrise Valley. It's quite a trek to the farm, over 150 kilometres or a 2.5 hour drive, of which is 30 minutes up a very windy gravel road. But interestingly, also, the elevation at our farm is a lot higher at 400 metres above sea level. And I think it's that elevation that really results in the farm having its own microclimate. It's quite interesting that the closest town to us in Murchison, which is 30 minutes away, has very different weather to us, actually. So it's sort of those things that are really driving what we think is some very unique characteristics in our hop terroir. Here's a map of our farm. The red is what we are close to completion in terms of a development, and the yellow is what we have left to go. But from a soils perspective, it's been described as free-draining silt and clay-based. What really attracted us was actually the high amount of high-quality organic matter in the soils, having been operated as a dairy farm for 25 years. The water is sourced from the Matakitaki River that cuts right through our property. It's nestled in a valley surrounded by Nelson Lakes National Park, which provides very high protection from wind. And climate, again, we've certainly noticed the sharper changes in temperature from winter and summer compared to some of the more established hop growing regions. And we've been tracking some of this data since we've been on the farm for 2 years now, and it's quite good to see that showing up as well. So these sort of hotter summers, cooler winters could really influence how different varieties grow and adapt relative to, again, some of the more established hop growing regions, largely centred in Nelson. Had our first harvest. Interestingly enough, some of the harvest windows that we had anticipated were very different. And just talking to Dave yesterday night, how those hops translated to the final product, I don't think he would mind me sharing that he was pretty excited with some of the hop pellets that were coming out of his mill. So because we were establishing a new large-scale hop farm in a brand new region, it was critical for us to have the right partners involved. Freestyle have been instrumental, and we've been leveraging their expertise and experience from site selection through to growing methods, variety selection, matching their growing and harvesting techniques, and utilising their palletising and cool store facilities. Garage project, again, very involved. Joss as a director and Pete as a special advisor, being committed to the farm during harvest and helping with sensory, improving our optimal harvest windows has been invaluable. And finally, Hāpi. We are eagerly anticipating some of the new experimental varieties that are nearly ready for commercialisation. We are planning on some of those varieties next spring. Last year we were able to harvest 4 hectares, and we're fortunate enough to get them in front of 2 very high-profile breweries, in this first case, Garage Project. The Motueka there was featured in 2 commercial beers, and the feedback on those were very encouraging. And Also, our Nelson Sauvin made its way to Sean at Hill Farmstead, where it was featured in a single hop brew. And again, the feedback that we were getting was really positive. So it's a really good validation for what we've been doing over the past couple of years. So as I mentioned, we had our first commercial harvest of 60 hectares this month. We'll be growing that year on year, 80 hectares a year, until we hit the 370 hectares. And the development is tracking ahead of that. So we're, in a couple of months, we'll be developed around 150 hectares, again 80 hectares a year, till we reach a little over 400. A little bit about our processing. The beauty of starting from scratch is you get the opportunity to work with a blank canvas and pick the best ideas that are available. And so Jason Johnson, our general manager, Sean Riley at Freestyle, and some of the very key contractors that we've had on board, we're all in a room thinking about how best to go about this. And what we've done, and all the decisions were purely driven to trying to get the best quality hop product. And the end result has been a state-of-the-art Danhauer picker imported from the US and assembled locally. When we were running harvest, Jason was indicating that we were picking about 60 binds a minute, which was a pretty incredible number, and couldn't have been happier with how things ran for a first time, which I hear is always very challenging, so pretty rapt. The kiln fit out was designed locally and also built by local contractors as well. Interestingly, we think that this setup is a first for modern large-scale commercial hop farms in the country. There are sensors underneath each of the kiln mats, weighing and recording the dried weights of all our kiln bays, and all of that data is going to help us create a very systematic drying process, and eventually, once we have all of that data, result in extremely consistent drying methods and end product. Once they're dried, they are gently tipped onto another elevated level, and not on kiln floors. And the reason for that is sometimes with some of those more traditional setups, a lot of the essential and valuable hop oils and resins are left on the floor. So allowing us to retain those as much as possible is certainly something we thought very long and hard about. And so once they're cooled, they are then again lowered onto another conveyor where they are transported directly to our baling station, where they are baled and transported to Freestyle, where they are palletized on the same day or the day after, which ensures that the end product is available to brewers as fast as possible. We've been really happy with how everything's worked and integrated, and actually we're now thinking about what are little tweaks and improvements that we can make to think ahead, because we're building the second one sort of right next door, with a similar size and spec as well. Just a little bit shifting away from harvest, but something quite important that we think about is the environmental impact that we have. We're blessed to be working in a pristine, beautiful place in New Zealand, and our environmental impact is top of mind when making some key development decisions. The property was originally a dairy farm operating a peak herd of 3,000 cows, so the conversion to hops has significantly reduced the carbon footprint of the land. We are preserving large blocks of native forestry, and in some cases building our gardens around them. We have identified quite a large area of land unsuitable for hops, which we intend to plant out native trees. And pleasingly, we've been able to integrate our processing system with the neighbouring hydro station, and this harvest, it was pleasing that most of our energy source was from the hydro station. So for the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to be just flat out trying to build the rest of the property. We're thinking about already the tweaks and improvements that we can make, and obviously very striving hard to deliver high quality to beer, to hops to the craft brewers all around the world. So thanks very much. It's a pleasure to speak on behalf of the entire team that's at the farm at the moment, wrapping up with harvest, to Jason Johnson, our general manager, who's got commitments down there but couldn't be here today, to Dave, Joss and Pete and everyone involved. It's been a really collegial and collaborative effort. Thanks.